Okay, today we have a very special guest. This is one of my clients who really has a very special story to share, and I'm so excited for her to be here today. So, Allie, thank you so much for being here. You want to tell us a little bit about your fertility journey?
Thank you for having me. And yeah, sure. I was just kind of looking back at, our conversation from the very beginning. And then also I kind of took a look at my intake form just to remind myself of like how I felt in that moment and like
Hmm.
kind of how I felt on like describing what I was going through, just so I could give you as much information as I could for you to be ready on our first call.
Yeah.
Um, so pretty much October of 2024, me and my husband started actively trying to have a baby. And honestly, we had been married for already almost 3 years by then. And we were excited to have a baby when we were younger before we got married, but we knew that it was in time. So then we kind of just waited. I've always had the dream of becoming a mother and just building a family with him because I love him so much. And I feel like as we went through our journey of being a married couple and enjoying our marriage and also working through the hardships of being married now and not being able to separate or, anything like that. It's just we were really committed to each other and just fighting through everything life threw at us. And the hardest battle we've had is infertility or struggling with conceiving. And I think it's actually made us like stronger as a couple. So pretty much October 2024, we started actively trying. We weren't using protection anymore. We were trying timed intercourse. And honestly, it felt almost like we were just trying to have intercourse and not miss a day because we wanted to make sure we got it covered.
Hmm.
So it started becoming more like a job than like
Hmm.
something enjoyable or something intimate between me and him. That at the point that I felt like he felt pressured, I felt pressured. I felt
Hmm.
irritated when it didn't happen because I'm like, what if we missed our chance? And then I saw my primary care doctor. I started talking to her about us trying in December, and she started giving us tips, like she told us about timed intercourse. She asked me if I was ovulating, and then I started asking myself questions like, am I ovulating? Like, how do I know? And I started researching, and then I felt like my period started becoming irregular shortly after that. I had never had like irregular periods. I was suffering with like PCOS symptoms, and my doctor had actually recommended me to an endocrinologist because of that. I was gaining weight fast, and then my periods have always been super heavy. I've have history of cyst in my ovaries. So I just felt like everything was wrong with me at that point when I'm trying to have a baby, and like it just felt like the world was like coming down on me. So then my doctor starts recommending me to like an OB, and the OB starts sending me to do blood work and like ultrasounds and making sure that I didn't have any cyst in my ovaries. And if I did, like, what can we do to fix this problem before I do get pregnant? Because she wanted to make sure there was no cyst in my ovaries and that my periods weren't as painful as they were. And I felt like that was like a few months in, around like April. I was just frustrated. Like, I kept getting, everything's normal, your blood work's normal. Like there shouldn't be like any trouble having a baby or conceiving naturally. You don't have any cyst in your ovaries at the moment. So I just felt like, then what's wrong with
Hmm.
me? Like I felt lost. And then I was actually transitioning from moving from like my doctor's from California to Arizona. So then I had traveled to California for that last appointment where I kind of got news of like everything's good, it's just God's timing. And in that moment, I felt frustrated because I'm like, I pray to God every day that this happens, and it feels like I'm not going anywhere. Like it's not getting anywhere. And the type of person I am, I like to take control of everything and like make sure I do and become as proactive as I can to get the solution I want.
Hmm.
And it just felt like I've already gone to the doctors, done the blood work, they're telling me everything's fine. What can I do more?
Hmm.
I was frustrated on my 5-hour car ride home. And honestly, I was like bawling my eyes out. And I was like, you know what? I need to listen to something inspirational. And I kind of pulled over to the side of the road. I looked up, fertility podcast, and I found Tori's podcast actually on this drive. So I click on it and I try to go to the very first episode, which was a lot of episodes to
Yes.
scroll through. So then I click on it and I'm starting listening to her, and I just love her like voice and like how upbeat she is, and just one, it being a Christian based podcast. I really love that. It made me feel like I kind of just like stumbled upon, like, her podcast was the first one I came up, and it just felt like it was meant to be almost, because I was like bawling my eyes out and I started hearing her stories and like just how she talks to people. And then I heard a testimonial from another client, and I was just like, oh, well, like if she got pregnant in 2 months, then I could also get pregnant in 2 months. And I was so optimistic hearing about the HTMA test, because I'm like, this is so different than, blood work and this, and like just it felt different. So then I actually called my husband. I said, you need to write down HTMA. Like he was at home in Arizona, and I said, you need to write down HTMA and we need to look into it, because I heard this on a podcast. So then I was driving, I couldn't write it down in my notes, but I didn't want to forget. So then I called him, and then he's like, okay. So then I continued my podcast, and I think I listened to like 12 episodes on that almost. It felt like, it was just keeping me going. I was so excited. I felt optimistic after feeling defeated in that sense. And then honestly, it's kind of strange that your podcast made me feel so like optimistic that I actually didn't commit to doing anything in the podcast
Yeah.
other than like changing a few things. Like, I was like, okay, I need to walk more. And I was like exercising a lot more, like at least 5 times a week, which I felt like maybe that was, now in hindsight, it's like excessive, because I feel like I was stressing my body out more, just trying to like get an end goal instead of like just kind of
Hmm.
like using it as a tool to relax. So then I I waited a few months. So this is in like April-ish, I think, is when April 2025 that I came across your podcast. And then I didn't actually reach out to you until like August of 2025, I believe. So it's just like I waited all that time because I was just kind of hoping that things would change without me having to
Hmm.
commit to something, right? And it was more like in my head, I was playing myself. I kept telling myself, like, it's gonna happen like this month, it's gonna happen. Like, I know it's gonna happen. But it was a roller coaster that I was tired of being on. So then
Hmm.
I finally just sent it. I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do the Vicon bundle, and you know, I want to actually do something that's gonna help me, because I was doing like the prenatals at first. Those didn't work. I feel like they weren't really doing much for me, like regular prenatals. And then I took it upon myself to do more research, and I found these other prenatals that were, there was like 8 pills and it was
Yes.
just a lot. So I felt a little overwhelmed with taking those as well. And then me and my husband were both doing them. And it felt like I was constantly like, hey, did you take your multivitamins? Hey, did you take this? And it just felt like I was like babying him, or like
Hmm.
watching over him and just like hovering over him, like, did you do this? Did you do that?
Yes.
And I think he started getting upset with me because I kept doing that. So then I was just like, okay, you know what? I'm done. At that point, I felt almost like he also was not like giving his all into this
Yeah.
as I was. And I felt like maybe he wasn't struggling as much as I was, but I don't know exactly how he felt, because it's different. Like
It
he
is.
wanted to have a child, but it's just, I think me being the one that's actually feeling all these things, and I felt like I was blaming myself for not being able to have a baby.
Hmm.
So then it just like felt even more frustrating. Like I wanted to put the blame on someone else, almost like,
Hmm.
he's not doing his part. That's why it must not be happening. But in reality, I felt so guilty because I felt
Yes.
like it was me.
And then you want them to feel like, as it's almost like we want other people to feel what we feel. So if we're feeling really frustrated and like it's our fault, like we almost want to see them have that same reaction, you know? And then if they aren't, if it seems like they're just not taking their supplements or not doing their part and just going on about their life, that they don't care as much as we do. And really, it's just that men and women process things totally different. But it's kind of like, I'm over here suffering and I need you to come over here and suffer with me,
Yeah.
and men typically like compartmentalize things and, just keep going. So I know exactly what you mean. It is like the difference in men and women, and the frustrating part of it. But like what you said at the beginning was that like you love him so much and y'all go through all the hard stuff together. And then you get in this and you're like, oh no, like this is changing things. This is really hard. So how did he feel? So you started listening to the podcast, which let me say, like, did you ever think when you were listening to that podcast on your drive back from California to Arizona that you would one day be the client that's on here sharing your story? Did you ever think like, oh, that's going to be me? I'm going to be on that podcast one day.
Well, I didn't really think about being on the podcast. I just more like felt like that's gonna be me. Like, especially when you
Yeah.
told me like, you're the client telling you like I have a positive, and sharing that moment with you.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was like excited and I wanted that to be me as well. And I was like, that's gonna be me. And I just needed to commit to it. I just feel like it took so long for me to be like, okay, I'm just gonna do it. And when I did, it did feel a little bit like, our like calls, it was just kind of like
Mm-hmm.
some days it was really good, but I also had a lot of things that went on during that time. And then the same thing every appointment, it was like that, every call it was just like a lot of things happened that I felt like I went through like all these hardships and
Life happens.
obstacles.
Yeah.
And
They
it just
turn into
feels good.
therapy sessions. It's like we come for fertility and we work on fertility, but then it's like almost as much therapy because life is still life, and even while you're trying to get pregnant, it's not like we come up with this plan and then everything goes like perfectly according to plan and we are checking off our list every day and every day is perfect. It's like no, things jobs are changing. People, I have people lose family members, unfortunately, like life be lifing, so it's like we have to come back to the drawing table. And I think that is one thing that's really nice about being in a longer program. Because like you said, it's hard to commit. Like it's an investment, it's a commitment to show up. But that's what's nice about it is once you're in it, you're in it. So it's like, okay, life is lifing and I'm still trying to get pregnant, but I know that I've got a call this month. I can talk to Tori this month and I can just like lay it all out and she's gonna walk me through. Because I do remember me and you walking through some stuff together. Like I feel like we're we're bonded, because we really walked through some stuff. But back to I wanted to touch on one more thing with you and Danny. Um, so and this is because this is the general way it goes. A woman finds the podcast, the wife finds the podcast, she listens, she likes it, she's intrigued, she wants to do the HTMA, and then she brings it up to her husband like, hey, I found this girl on a podcast and I want to work with her. It's like I found this stranger on the internet and I think I want to work with her. And husbands are sometimes like, what? So what did Danny say when you were like, because I know you called him and said, hey, write down HTMA. But when you said that you were tired of being on that roller coaster and you were ready to commit to it, what did Danny say? Was he like all in, or was he kind of like, oh, I mean, this is just some weirdo on the internet, Allie. I don't know who this woman is, or what was his kind of general thoughts?
But it's actually funny because I feel like Danny was the one pushing me to just commit to it.
Oh yeah.
I was the one that was scared because I'm like, I don't want to spend the money right now because like one, I had just gotten a job. So like it
Mhm.
felt like I didn't want to. So this is another thing, like me and Danny, like he is like have access to all my accounts, do whatever you want with the money, like,
He's a good
I
man. He's a
trust
good man, Savannah.
yeah. So then it's just funny because I just like, no, it's okay. Like, I want to have my own money and I want to spend my own money and stuff. But he's like, no, but this is something for both of us.
Hmm.
And even if it is, and like it's for you and it's gonna make you happy, then do it.
Yes.
But I feel like I was hesitant and I was just kind of like on that roller coaster where I was like, it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. Like, when you keep going,
Hmm.
like, when it feels like it's getting like better and it's about to be done, but then it just like throws you for a loop again. And it's
Yep.
like, yeah, that's kind of how I felt for like those few months. And when I actually just, I think one day I was just at home and I was like, you know what? I'm tired of this roller coaster. I need to get off of it. And I just purchased the package and stuff.
Mm.
And he got home and I'm like, so I'm doing the thing and you know, I paid for it. He's like, no, 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 like you don't need to pay for it. He sent me the money and he was actually like, I think he was just like really all in, just anything to
Hmm.
make me happy and
I love
anything to
that.
helped me in my like journey because I feel like in that sense now that I look back, I'm like, okay, like he actually was supportive. He was also struggling. He was struggling seeing me torn
Mm-hmm.
and struggling, and he just wanted to fix the problem as well. Like he wanted me to feel better, and he would do anything to make me feel better.
Oh, you got a good man. You got a good man. I love that. And it's so, you're so like me. Well, after I had kids, so I was working in the hospital. And then when me and Chase, my husband, started having kids, I kind of became a stay-at-home mom. And so the money shift was different. Like I'd been working since, I worked my whole way through college. I'd always paid my own bills. Like I was kind of used to that. So stepping back and letting him pay for everything so I could stay home was I had a really hard time with it. Like, no, that's your money. That's not our money. But no, we're married. It's our money. And for Danny to be like, no, I'm going to give you that money back. I'm proud of you for investing in yourself and I'm going to pay you that money back. Like, I love that. That's so good. I remember the one thing I remember about Danny too was the energy drinks and being like, I'm not going to take your energy drinks away from you, but I just want you to like cut back. And he was like, okay, okay, I'll try.
Yeah.
I'll do it.
I know. And it's so funny because our like boss actually has told him like, oh, like he asked him a few times, like he's like, are you guys gonna have any babies? Any babies anytime soon?
Mm.
Any news for us? And he's like, no. And Danny was actually had an energy drink in his hand. He's like, well, that's the reason why.
Oh, see, boss man knew too.
Yeah. So then it's funny because he stopped drinking energy drinks. He actually has been really good on like not drinking that many energy drinks.
Yeah,
Like I think he's had one here and there every other week or so, or like
yeah,
maybe in a month if we have like a long car drive and like he's like, okay, I just need a little pick me up,
yeah.
on the drive so we could get to our destination safely. But other than that, like I don't think he really drinks as much as he was. And it's kind of crazy because his coworker was also telling him like, oh, like when Stanley told him that, we were expecting, he's like, oh, great, now you're gonna be back on your energy drinks. And then he's like, no, I am not. He's like, I'm still trying to be healthy.
Yeah, good for him. Danny gets a gold star. We love Danny. But it is, I mean, it's cool when you see like the sacrifices that you made work out, because it is kind of like, oh, well, what does it matter if I have an energy drink or not? And I think that's perfect. Like you know me, like I'm an 80/20 girl. I'm not saying you should never have an energy drink ever in your life, but having one a week or every other week or when you're on a road trip is so much better than like every single day. And we obviously see that through the fact that you guys are pregnant now. So that's really cool. So I also want to say Allie and Danny both tested. So for those of you listening, it wasn't that we just tested Allie because just like you said, Allie, a lot of women feel like it's their fault, like they're the problem. And it's like it takes two to tango. And so I think testing the husband is really important too, because we saw looking at Danny's test, like, hey, we've got a little bit of like some burnout, and that could be from the energy drinks. It can be from work. We talked about some other things. So it's so important to test both of them. So I love that Danny was just all in from the get-go and he was even willing to do the test and everything.
Oh
Tell
yeah,
us about, oh, go ahead.
and then he even did the Vicon supplements,
Yes.
which
Mm-hmm.
I actually learned, not to tell him what to do or control his little thing because Tori told me to. She said just let him be, he'll do his part. And honestly, he would be the one who was preparing our Vicons in the morning. So like
Mm-hmm.
it just felt like, okay, he's doing his part like times 100 right now. Like he's
Yeah.
finally on it. I feel like we're all on the same page and we're just kind of getting through this.
And I think it too, one thing that makes it easier to quote unquote do the things you're supposed to, like take supplements, is when they're made for you. Like you guys invested in the program and doing the test. The test showed you, and we walked through exactly what your test was telling us, and then we supplemented based on that. And it makes it so much like mentally easier to get up and take your supplements every day because you know that they're addressing exactly what you need. And when we take not that there's necessarily anything wrong with taking generic supplements or starting there, but when you take generic supplements, you're just kind of like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if these are doing anything. And so subconsciously, it's easier not to take them because you've already kind of convinced yourself, again, subconsciously, that they probably won't work anyways. And that mindset shift makes a big difference. So, like you said, Danny went from not taking them and you feel like you have to stand over him to him making them for you in the morning, being like, cheers, let's go. We got our stuff. And I think something with your name on it like that just makes a world of difference mentally and obviously physically. If it's made for your body, you're going to see better results. But it shifts something. When you know that you're not guessing, that you have actual answers and you're not guessing, it motivates you in a way that you weren't motivated before.
Yeah, it definitely does. I think it's different when something's specific to you because then, like you said, any other like supplement you get on like online or at the store, like it's just something that has a good amount of this, a good amount of that. But
Mhm.
it's crazy because when just seeing when our packages arrived, like I mean, Danny's stuff, like it says everything it had on it, and it was different from mine. And it just
Mhm.
makes you feel like, okay, this is the real deal, like it's made just for me, it's made for what I need, and
Mhm.
that's made for what he needs. And it just felt like this is actually meant to work for us. It's not
Yes.
like a guessing game, like, is this going to be the right supplement for me or not?
Yeah. And I think even, what's cool too is, the Vicon is expensive or like it's an investment on the front end. But even if you think about the prenatals that you were on, I can't remember the brand, but I can picture it in my head. But that brand is expensive, you know? And so you were probably in the long term paying the same price for something customized for you versus the generic supplements you were taking in the first place. And so that's what I tell a lot of people too that they don't realize is like, yes, the program is an investment, the process is an investment, but in the long term, it ends up being about the same because of the fact that it's streamlined and personalized and actually addressing the problems, the root cause of the problem. So just really, I mean, every time I talk about this stuff, I'm like, I love HTMA. It makes me love it even more. It's just really neat.
I know, and I don't know if this is the moment to like share this part, like, but it's just like more like it was like traumatic to do the HTMA test for me. And I think it's just traumatic, I think, for women in general to get their
Yeah.
hair cut. And it's
Yes.
so funny, the other day I was like straightening my hair and I had a piece that was like sticking out, like a good of
Hmm.
chunk of hair just sticking out. I'm like now I look at it and I smile because I'm like, I can't believe I made a big deal out of it.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was necessarily that. I think it was just like the buildup of everything that I just felt
Yes.
like so much more intense, that feeling of my husband cutting my hair and I could hear the scissors just,
Yes.
cutting away at
Yes.
big chunks of hair.
I remember you telling me about that and being like, I was so upset with him because he cut such a big chunk of my hair.
Yeah, and I was like just thinking in my head, like, he's gonna have to cut a few more chunks of my hair and don't just cut this one, it's gonna be rough. I'm gonna end up bald.
You can grow it out with your baby's hair, you know? You have your
Yeah.
babies and you and your baby can grow your hair at the same time. I have a client right now, she shared in our group, where her husband had cut her hair too. So for those of you listening, it may be better to get a friend or your hairdresser to cut your hair than your husband. But she had a little piece like right, because I say to like cut it underneath so you can't see it, and she had a little piece on the side that was short, and she was talking about how she thought her husband didn't cut one like closer to the front, but here we are. So it is funny because we are girls. We like our hair. Our hair is important to us. So it does feel like a big deal. But then when you're actually on the other side and you're like, I'm pregnant, it was worth it. You're like, oh, who cares about a little piece of my hair sticking out?
Yeah, definitely. Now it's kind of like a reminder, like, of like everything I went through. And it's crazy because that day I had like a mental breakdown, like where I was like on the floor crying, like, you know, screaming, why? Like, why is this happening to me? Why are we going through this? And like almost, just I feel like my faith was being tested in that moment strongly. Like I
Mm-hmm.
felt like a big dark cloud over me and it was just pouring on me and it felt horrible. Like snot was coming out of my nose and
Yes.
the tears were just rolling and rolling and I was like so frustrated and defeated. I was on the ground and my husband was trying to get me up and it just like I just wanted to be on the floor defeated and just be
Mm-hmm.
done. And like it felt horrible. This is while he was like in the process of cutting my hair and then I had to get up and just be like, okay, cut the rest.
All right, I've had my pity party. Now let's keep going.
Yeah, and then it just kind of like I felt traumatized after that moment. I felt like what just happened? And I feel like I traumatized him more than I'm traumatized. He was like, "What is this woman doing on the floor crying, screaming at who?" And uh I don't know, it just now looking back at that little hair the other day, it just like it made me like laugh because I'm
Hmm.
like now I'm here pregnant and the hair doesn't matter because I
Hmm.
at the end of the day like now I'm pregnant and I'm expecting my baby and that's all I care about now is just being
Mm-hmm.
healthy and just getting through the day. It almost feels like an eternity ago that I was struggling with, trying to conceive and all the stuff that I was going through in those months as well.
What month was it? So I'm thinking, okay, you started trying in October 2024. We started working together in August of 2025. And then we were messaging on Instagram about you being pregnant. When was that? What month was
January
that?
January 13 actually.
January. You looked at, I know. So August, September, October, November, December, January. So 5 months. 5 months. And really, the first month is like getting the test back and getting the results. So, really, from the time you implemented your protocol till the time you turned up pregnant was 4 months.
Well, I think our Vicon arrived around like October. Well, mine did arrived in October. I think mine took a little bit longer to create the formula.
Oh,
So I think so technically for me, I started in October my Vicon supplementation.
yeah. So, even maybe closer to 3 months.
Yeah.
That's real.
So
Yeah.
and then our calls were done around like Thanksgiving time, so
Hmm.
we hadn't really talked that much. I know you checked up on me and see how I was doing, and then January came around and you asked me, and then I remember just like, you know, I felt frustrated then too, but just because of other things like losing my grandma and stuff, and it just felt like, oh, I'm okay, like I could be
Hmm.
better, and then shortly finding out like,
Yeah. It was
I'm
like an
pregnant.
hour later, I think. I remember looking at the timestamps on it because I had messaged you checking in on you and you're like, I'm okay. I'm like, I'm doing okay. And then an hour later, you sent me a message with like a pregnancy test being like, oh my gosh, Tori, I cannot believe this.
Yeah, I know. I felt like a little kid who's so proud to show like their
Hmm.
teacher like their project. That's how I
Yes.
felt. Like we did it.
I know. I remember looking at it and because we had just talked again, it was like only an hour. So like I remember looking at it and being like, this is the same. Like I only have one Allie, and you spell your name uniquely too. So I'm like, I only have one Allie that's ALE. I'm like, yes, this is the same one that I talked to an hour ago.
I know, and it's funny because we were actually on our way home from work when I saw your message and then I responded and actually had a rough time coming home and I had just woken up from a nap and then I want to say like from when I texted you back, I was only like 10 minutes away from my house.
Hmm.
And then I got home and I just had a feeling like I'm gonna take a test. And honestly, I don't know why I took the test. It just like something just took over me and said, you know what, go take a test. And I did. And when I did, I just was sitting in the restroom and I just like was waiting to maybe a few minutes for it to pass, but literally immediately it turned into two lines and I couldn't believe it. I could not believe my eyes. I thought this was fake. This test must be wrong because it was a little cheap test, the ones that you get like from your ovulation kit.
Hmm.
So I was like, it's probably not going to be accurate. So then I was just kind of freaking out and I started digging through like my little stash of pregnancy tests that I had from like previous months. And I took another one and then that one came out positive too. So then I'm like, oh my goodness, like it's really happening. Like
Hmm.
so then like the first I couldn't like wait to tell someone and I'm like, but Danny was like, I don't want you to get your hopes up. Like, let's wait until our doctor's appointment. But I'm
Yeah.
like, I have to tell Tori right now
Yes.
because I cannot believe she texted me today.
I
And
know.
like I don't know what took over me to go take that test and it did happen and I felt crazy even just texting you like oh yeah everything's okay and like it was more like down to like oh my goodness I'm pregnant.
Yes, those are my favorite messages because I love like I'm the person like that. Like, oh, I want to show it's like you said like a kid wanting to show a teacher their project. So typically people message me before they even tell their husband because maybe they took their test in the morning and their husband's already at work or whatever. So I get the very special privilege of being like one of the very first people to know, and it's such like a blessing to me because even that like knowing I've even had messages from people where I can tell that they're still sitting on the toilet from the picture they took. Like they're not even off the toilet yet, and they took a picture and sent it to me. Not that I can see anything, but I can tell, that
Yes.
they're still sitting down in the bathroom. And it cracks me up, but I love it so much because I feel the same way. Like I'm just like, oh my gosh, yes, like I can't believe it. And then when my husband gets home, who doesn't even know you, doesn't know these people I'm working with, I'm like, Allie's pregnant. And he's like, yay, like I want to tell somebody. I'm
Yeah.
like, this is look, Allie texted me, so
Yes.
it's really, really exciting. So Danny was home with you. Were you like, Danny, come here and look at this test?
So it's just crazy because that day, Danny's really like, he's such a sweetheart and he's so patient with me and he's so gentle with me in every sense. And we were going home from work. Well, I was walking out the door from the office and he was like getting stuff ready out in his truck, like his work truck. And I said, like, baby, are you ready to go? Because I was so exhausted this day. And he said, why are you stating the obvious? And I was like, it just threw me for a loop because he never responds to me like that. So
Yeah.
I felt like that was so mean, you know?
Yeah.
So I got in the car and I started bawling my eyes out because I was like, why would he say that to me? And I had no like snarky response to come back because I usually do. Like, that's just my personality. And I was like, this is so like out of character for me as well. Like, why am I not responding back or like, arguing back with him, like we usually bicker and it's because of me because I can't stand like him taking the last word, like because
Yes.
he does it to get a reaction out of me and it's just he does good at doing that and I just couldn't say anything. I was just like at a loss of words and I just like started crying and then I took a nap and then he got off to go put gas and he's like, do you want anything from the gas station? And I just like looked at him and gave him the cold shoulder and just
Like, I'm
like
not even talking to
looked
you.
away. Yeah, like I don't want to talk to you. Like if you're gonna get me something, you're gonna get me something.
You better get me
And
something because you were mean to me.
yeah, so then we get home and I continue not talking to him. I'm just kind of like upset still. And I get into our room and I'm like, okay, I really need to pee. Like this is like our ritual. Like I get home and I need to pee. He gets like home and he feeds not like our dog Nala. So I just like I don't know what, like I said, like I don't know what took over me and I was like, I'm gonna take a test. So I went into the restroom, took the test. He had no thought of it, like he was
Yeah.
like, he's just going to the restroom. Like that's what she does when we get home. And then I started like yelling at him like baby, baby. Like, he was outside and I was just like yelling at him like to come into the
Yeah.
room. And he goes in there and then like I hand him the test and he didn't even think about it twice. He just grabbed the test with both hands. So he's like, what side is the peace side on? And I'm like, I was like, you're literally holding it on both sides, so it doesn't matter. So I wasn't expecting to have that be like the way I told him I was
Mm.
pregnant when it happened, but it just happened so naturally, like and it was
Yes.
spontaneous, it really was. Like he's holding here the P on one side and he doesn't even care at this point. He's just like looking at it. He's like, what does this mean? I'm like, well, it's two lines, it's positive. Like, look at the box of the
Yeah.
test. And he's just like, he's kind of like in shock. So yeah, he was at home with me and I was giving him the cold shoulder a few minutes before we found
Yes.
out.
That's a good way to get over an argument, Just hand him a pregnancy test that you just peed on that's positive. Argument over.
Yeah, and then shortly after, like, we had our moment, like, funny enough, it was in the closet again, like after, like it's like I don't know what it was about our closet. It's just like our restroom and our closet are like connected. It's like an
Mhm.
open space. So it just felt like weird, we were here just a few months ago crying, and now
Mhm.
here we are sitting, like standing in this closet with this positive pregnancy test. And it just felt like a full circle moment to me.
Yes.
Like, and I was crying, and he was just telling me, like, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Like, let's see the doctor, make sure everything's okay. I don't want you to get your hopes up. And you could tell he was excited too. And then he
Yeah.
walked away, and he came back with like snacks. He had like a Reese's peanut butter cup, and
Yeah.
he was like, "I got you this." He's like, "You must be having cravings now."
It's so sweet.
And then he's like, "And I also bought you some chips." And I'm like, it's funny. I knew he would do that when he got off at the gas station. He
Yeah.
would get me whatever, but it's just that he knows what I like.
Hmm.
But it's just like I think he's like, I think I have the cravings because he was just eating so much chocolate. I felt like he was nervous in the moment as well.
Yes. He's probably processing it all too, like, oh my gosh, did it really happen? This is really happening. It actually
Yeah.
worked.
So then that night we like had such a hard time falling asleep because we just kept thinking about it. Like, I can't believe it's happening. Like, I can't believe it's real. Is this a dream? Like this, like
Yes. That's so sweet. I love that. And I love that about the closet too, because I do remember that. And I meant to ask you before we started recording, because that is a moment in our calls that I very vividly remember is you talking about crying in the closet and feeling so defeated. And I remember thinking like, "Ugh, I want to come through this screen and hug this girl because I know like I could feel how heavy it was and how hard it was. And so I just remember that moment. And so I love this like redemption story of like this is where like I was in the floor crying and like defeated and back and then full circle, like I said, total God thing. God's like, I'm going to redeem this situation, you know, and then you find yourself holding a positive pregnancy test in the exact same spot that you were like in the floor crying. You know,
Yeah.
so sweet, so sweet. I love it. Tell us, for the woman listening to this and they're like, oh my gosh, Allie's story is amazing. I want a story just like that, kind of like you when you were driving back from California to Arizona. What would you tell someone that's kind of like on the fence about doing the program? Like maybe they've been listening to the podcast or they follow me on Instagram and they're like, this sounds interesting. It sounds like exactly like what you said, something I haven't heard of. It's different than blood labs. What would you tell that woman that's kind of interested, on the fence, nervous about the investment, nervous about the commitment? What would you say to her?
Honestly, I would say just commit to it, do it. You're probably going to spend more money trying to figure out other solutions that might seem cheaper in that moment, but as a cumulative like cost, it's probably not going to be it's going to be roughly around the same, but it's not
Hmm.
going to be the same result. I feel like if I would have just thought about it that way back then, I feel like maybe I would have been pregnant sooner. And I think that was like one of my hardest things to like commit to was the cost of it.
Hmm.
But it was honestly so worth it because just not only just like the program itself of like having the supplement, but the calls with Tori where like it really does feel like a therapy session. Like that's something that you can't really get anywhere else. Like you go to the, to through all these like things and ways to like get pregnant and you see all these tricks like do this do that and it's like you're spending the money on this stuff but you don't have someone like walking you through it and someone you know, guiding you through like a plan and also creating a plan that's specific to like your needs. So that's what I would recommend. It's just like do it. Like don't even think about it. Just do it. I know the cost could be heavy like at the beginning, but at the same time, like I don't even think about the cost anymore. Like
Hmm.
I that's something that I don't even think about at all. Like it just I don't regret it one bit. I think it was worth it. Whether, it was God's timing or it was the Vicon that did it or the calls with Tori and getting that like stress and that, you know, like hopelessness off of my chest on our calls. Like I think all of it as a whole has actually gotten me to this point.
I got to write that down. Get the hopelessness off my chest. That is a really good statement because it is true. Like, I can't guarantee anybody a pregnancy. You know, like that is the hope, that is the dream, that's the plan. But, like you said, it is so much God's timing. But I think that taking action to show God that you trust His timing is the difference maker, you know. But even saying that, like, it would have been worth it even to get the hopelessness off my chest, like, that is such a powerful statement. I love that. I'm like over here, like, starring it. Such a good statement because I know that a lot of women feel that way. Like they feel hopeless. Like this will never happen for them. Their body's broken. They're never going to find answers. They're never going to find a plan and they just feel hopeless. And it's like, how do you get off that roller coaster where you feel hopeless all the time? And it's exactly what you said. You work with someone who listens to you, who can give you a personalized plan and walk through it with you. Because, like we said at the beginning, life is still going to life. Things are still going to be hard. It's not, the road's not going to get easier, but walking it with someone is a lot easier.
And it's
So,
not only just like anybody who works with you, it's Tori who works with you. Like she's so passionate about it. Like she's so passionate about what she's doing and getting you guys this positive test just like she got me mine.
mhm.
I feel like she really helped me in my journey. Like it really like I can't imagine like going through this journey without having her cross my path anymore because that's just like she's part of my story now.
Don't make me cry, Ellie. Don't make me cry. I made it through the whole podcast without crying. Thank you. That's really sweet. It's very sweet. And like I said, I do feel like me and you had a very special bond because it's like I remember, I think I even told you this at one of our calls that like how much I appreciated like how honest you were because like you came and laid everything out. Like, okay, yes, all the normal stuff. Here's my periods. Here's my supplements. Here's my work life. Here's all the stuff. But then you came with like the stories of laying in the closet. Like, this is how depressed and anxious and defeated I feel. And this is what I need help with. And I loved that. Like, I didn't love that that was happening, but I love that you brought that to the table because sometimes people can, like, try to put on a brave face, which I totally understand. But it's like, no, come to me with all your mess and let's lay all the mess on the table and let's work through it together because that's being a human. And this, fertility is hard. So I always appreciated that from you. Like, yes, let's just like let's walk in this mess hand in hand, because it's a way easier to do it with someone, like you said. So yes, I love that. Thank you. If
Yeah, and I
you,
mean, like committing to it, like to the program, not just like financially and like also, actually keeping up with like your supplement and your plan that Tori creates for you and just actually doing those life adjustments. Because there was some life adjustments that you recommended for both me and Danny, and just taking into consideration those things like, walking after eating and, Danny stopping his energy drinks and stuff like that. Like it really did help those little things that are just like they're not major changes
Mhm.
that cause like an additional stress to your life where you're like, oh, I got to worry about this and make sure I do it. But actually being open with you and like you said, laying it out all on the table, because I feel like if I wasn't as vulnerable, I was gonna be like selling myself short, or I
Mhm.
guess not allowing myself to fully like submerge myself into this journey, because I feel
Yes.
like you're just going to pay for this stuff. Like it's already financially something that I was struggling with. So why am I going to like set myself back by not opening up completely? And it just,
Yes.
that's kind of what I thought. And it's hard to be vulnerable because I am that type of person that likes to put up a front of like, I'm okay, like I'm strong. I don't need anybody to console me or anything. But when it came to this, it was like I was so defeated. And at the same time, I just wanted help. And if you
Mhm.
really want help, you need to be as open as possible to get that help.
Yes, that is such a good statement. Our at my church right now, we're doing a series called Full Sin, talking about like if you're going to do something for Christ, go all in, be full sin, because those results are going to be different than if you're lukewarm. And that's so true for this program too. Like if you come in lukewarm, and we don't talk about all the things that are really happening because I have people with like all different kinds of stress in their life. Like some people, their marriage needs a little bit of work, or some people like they have some family history, that's some trauma from their past that's hard, and it's hard to open up to someone about that, especially if you come into it like a regular doctor's appointment where you think you're just going to talk about your period and like just the logistics of trying to get pregnant. And then I get up all in your business and I'm like, how many siblings do you have? Do you like your spouse? Are you and your spouse on the same page? Like it is a totally different vibe. But if you'll, and some people want to protect their business, I guess. Like me and my husband are two totally different people. I will tell you everything. I'll tell you everything about my life, what's going on, what I'm struggling with. My husband is old school, like, no, I'm going to keep my problems to myself. I don't tell people what's going on in my, I'm not vulnerable in that way. I'm vulnerable with everybody. And it's just, different strokes for different folks. But this is one of those places where, like, the more vulnerable you get, the better I can interpret your test and really know what's causing the imbalances and the better results you're going to get. So that's such a good point that I actually don't know if, like, I do these interviews with clients, but I don't, that's one thing that's, I'm really glad you said that because I don't think that's one thing we've talked about before. Like, really stepping into the program and being all in. Like if you are going to make this investment, if you are going to make this commitment, then go full send and step all the way into it. Don't just halfway do it because, like you said, then it's just a disservice to yourself.
Yeah,
So that is
it
such a
really
good
is.
point. Such a good point. If you, that was probably the last question is always like, what is the number one piece of advice you would give a woman listening to this podcast in general? Which I think that one is a perfect piece of advice is just to go all in. But if you had one other piece of advice to wrap this up and leave the woman listening to this episode with, what would your number one piece of advice be?
I mean, I think that was kind of my
Yeah.
piece of advice that I feel like is like a major point is like you really have to commit to it all the way,
Hmm.
through. You just have to see it all the way through. If you it's you can't win the race just by, running really fast the first lap and then just slacking off the rest. Like you
Yeah.
can't. And it just feels like I guess another advice is just really trusting God's timing. And that was something that I struggled with. And I think every woman's going to struggle with going through this
Yes.
process. It's like a given. You're gonna struggle. It's gonna test your fate. And I just remained hopeful even when I was down. It was almost like every day was a renewal of like an opportunity to push closer to God instead of farther away from him. And it just felt like there was a lot of moments where I actually talked to Tori where I felt like he was sending me signs. Like, after the closet like episode that I had, it was just like I was on my way home to work and I saw sun rays coming.
I remember that.
It was so nice and it felt like magical. It felt like God was peeking through and telling me that he was seeing me and I felt seen. And I actually didn't tell Tori this, but when me and my husband went on our trip to Washington over Christmas time, which is when I conceived. So I had asked, you know, God to send me a sign that our baby was coming soon. I didn't expect, like an answer of like, oh, it's gonna be this day, like it was more like a relief of like he sees me still, he's still, watching over me, he's still watching over my journey and he's going to make this happen for me in his timing.
Mm.
And I had asked him to we have like on our road trip to Washington, there's a lot of like elk signs and deer signs and all this stuff. So then I had asked for him to put a deer in my path. And our whole car drive, like for 15 hours, there was not a single deer, but I could see all these signs and not one deer came across. So I was kind of frustrated, but at the same time, I'm like, it's okay. Like I kind of took it off my mind and I just said, it's gonna happen when it's gonna happen. He's gonna send me the sign when I really need it the most. And we were actually out to dinner with some friends in this little town called Leavenworth. And it's already magical as it is because it's like, all the Christmas lights during
Hmm.
Christmas time and you see all the families together, you see kids sledding and stuff. Like it just feels magical. It feels like out of a movie. Well, we were on our way back home or like back to our hotel and there was a deer on the corner of like a traffic signal. So we were stopped and Danny was like, "Look, look, look." And I looked and I hadn't told him about me asking for the sign from God. So
Yeah.
he didn't know, but he was like, "Look, look, look." And I grabbed my phone and I wanted to capture the moment. And in that moment, like, it felt like I was like rushed to grab my phone and I wanted to make sure I got it before it took off running. And it felt like it stopped in time for us to watch it. And it actually I have a video and I'll send it to Tori,
Mm.
but pretty much we get to the traffic side or like the signal and it's still waiting at the corner of that traffic signal and it's just like waiting for me to look at it at its eyes like and it's staring at me and it just stopped there and it felt so weird like I got full body
Like
chills like
I
I
have
just
chills right now just listening to you say that. Like I literally just, ugh.
so I felt full body chills like this deer that I've been asking for as a sign is literally here waiting for me to watch it.
Hmm.
And it crossed so like calmly in front of our car and across the street. And I was like, what the heck just happened?
That is crazy. And I feel like, the scripture about like God's ways are higher than our ways, like more than we ask or imagine because God's ways are higher than our ways. So to me, it's such a God thing for you to be asking for this sign of a deer going down this highway where there's deer signs. Like it makes sense for a deer to be there, and then you didn't see one and you're kind of like, eh. But to see a deer in the middle of this like active holiday season town like on a street, like that's such a God thing. Like I'll give you a deer, but I'm going to give you a deer in a place that it shouldn't be, so you know it's from me. And even that, like being in like a crowded streets or stoplights or there's cars everywhere, it makes sense for a deer to just run off, like to be super like scared and jumpy and timid and just like run in any direction. So for this deer to just be at a street light staring at you and
Yeah.
not run off while you get your phone, like that did like just give me chills. Like that's such a God thing to be like, all right, you want a deer? I'll give you a deer, but it's not going to
Yeah.
be where you expect it. And you're going to know it's from me because it's not going to run off and it's going to stare you in the eyes, you know?
Yeah, and it was so weird. Like the way it just like walked in front of our car too. Like it was so close to us and it just so calmly. Like it was just like so nonchalant, just walking down the street, like it knows, where it's going. Like it was so weird. It just felt like time just stopped. And in that moment I was like, I can't believe this.
That is crazy. And that's the trip that you conceived on, and then the next month you're pregnant.
Yes.
That is crazy. You did not tell me that. That is such a good
Yeah.
story.
And I know I told you that, my grandma passed away on December 31st,
Hmm.
and we were actually on our way to Yellowstone National Park to go snowmobiling. And I thought it was already going to be awesome, like going to Yellowstone, because that's
Hmm.
something that I've always wanted to do. And I didn't expect to get the news of like my grandma passing
Yeah.
then, and I didn't know how to react. But in that moment, like I felt so at peace being out in like the national park and like in
Hmm.
a snowmobile, and I was so like calm, like the calmest I've ever been in my life. Like I felt like which is so weird because I was so scared leading up to this trip because snowmobiling, like you're gonna be next to like all this wildlife, and I had some videos of like wolves and stuff, and I was kind of anxious to go, but I
Yeah.
didn't see any like crazy wildlife. Like I saw like some bison, but they were pretty far away from me, so it was really enjoyable. And later to find out, like my like Aura app, like the natural cycle said that I
Mm.
conceived on the 31st, and I thought that was so interesting,
That
like that
is.
it said that. I mean, from then it changed, like, once I went to the OB and stuff, they said it's around this time, but I don't know. Well, I guess we'll see when baby comes.
Yeah. That is so interesting. That is like, yeah, all kinds of God in that, like losing your grandmother, that being like while you're on this trip, very close, if not the exact day you conceived, and the deer and everything. That's just very, that's crazy. That's really neat.
Yeah.
I wrote, you gave me some good quotes. I also wrote down, you said every opportunity, or yeah, every opportunity is a chance to either push closer to Christ or further away. I think that was a good one. That was another really good one. So we were talking about going full send, and every opportunity is a chance to push closer to Christ because it's obvious that He will meet you. Like, and that's one thing I've been reading a lot about in like Proverbs, and I think I'm in the book of Mark too, where they talk about like, ask for wisdom and you'll have it. Like, ask God for wisdom and He will give it to you. Ask, the scripture about like everyone who asks will receive. Like all you need to do is knock on the door. And like that's what you did. Like you took action, you trusted God's timing, took action, asked God for wisdom and confirmation, and He gave it to you in such beautiful ways. And so that's really cool to see like the full picture. And I know it's harder when you're like on the front end of the full picture, but I think this is just such an inspiring story of like how God really can show up, especially if you take those opportunities to push closer to Him instead of further away from Him. That's
Yep.
so good. So good. Allie, thank you so much for being here and sharing this story. I think there's like so many gold nuggets in here, and I think it's going to really bless the women that get to listen to it.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to share my story and on your podcast to hopefully help someone who was like me when I came across your podcast, like just looking for answers, looking for hope, looking for someone to help me get out of these trenches of like going through infertility or trying to conceive and being unsuccessful. I don't, now that I think back of it, like I remember you telling me like, you're going to get pregnant, you're fertile, like no matter what, like you're going to get pregnant. Like it kind of changed my mindset on like saying infertility or like
Mhm.
infertile, because in a reality, like my fertility specialist had actually told me like your chances of conceiving are very slim to none. And it's crazy because then not even like 6 days later, I found out I was pregnant.
That is so crazy. I would just, for anyone listening to this, if they tell you that your chances are slim to none, or they give you a percentage, like, oh, you only have a 4% chance of getting pregnant naturally, I want you to ask them, show me the receipts. Show me where you did the math to come up with that. Because, so this person told you your chances are slim to none. Slim
Yeah, to
to
conceive naturally.
none. And then you were pregnant in 3 to 4 months after starting a mineral balancing plan.
Yep.
No procedures, no doctor's appointments, just me, you, emotional support, supplements based on what your body needs, small lifestyle tweaks. And I always say that like you're just a tweak away. So for a doctor to tell you your chances are slim to none, that just drives me insane. Ugh, it just makes me so mad. But that just shows what God can do, like what really, truly what God can do. Like doctors don't get the final say. God gets the final say. And good for you for trusting the process and doing the work and showing up and like, yeah, drawing closer to Him instead of drawing closer to negative statistics. Yeah, so good. So good.
I
Thank
know.
you. Yeah, thank you, Allie. I appreciate this conversation so much.
Me too.